And good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jerzee Joe. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Your new air conditioning keeping your house cold?
Oh, thank God. I have to say, last week's heat wave fried my brain a little bit because last week was the summer solstice. And as one of our listeners pointed out, I accidentally used the word
Equinox.
equinox, and
Right,
equinox means equal, and equal is fall and spring of
right,
12 hours of sunlight and 12 hours of darkness. And right now, with the summer solstice, we're experiencing about 15 to 16 hours of daylight, depending on where you are in the country.
right. Well, thanks. That's my lead in because today's the June 25th, and the solstice was on the 20th, which was the longest number of daytime hours of the year, which means starting 4 days ago, the days are getting slightly shorter every day between now and the equinox. Well, they're going to continue to get shorter and shorter until we get to the winter solstice.
Mhm.
But yeah, so the summer solstice, the longest daylight of the year, was 4 days ago.
Yep.
All right. Well, anyway, with today being June 25th, um, it's the situation with Jersey Joe. It's news and perspective you won't hear on TV, and I've got quite a bit of news and perspective you probably didn't hear on TV. Um, our quote of the week is from Ricky Gervais. You know who Ricky Gervais is?
Yep. Yep. Comedian.
Actor, well, act comedian and actor.
Actor, comedian, yeah.
Right. And it's a
Man of
great
many
quote.
talents.
Right. And it's the it's a great quote on the difference between facts or how facts and opinion should interact. Stupidest thing I've heard all week. We'll tell you how the why about a request the state of California has made to the EPA to ban diesel locomotives in their state and why it's such a stupid proposal. We'll tell you what happened to the employees of a union coffee shop chain in Philadelphia after they voted to join a union. Have you ever heard the phrase winning the battle and losing the war?
Yep.
Well, these employees won the battle and lost the war. We'll tell you what happened there. Um, we'll tell you about what thousands, literally thousands of millionaires and billionaires who had been living in the UK are now doing following the latest round of income tax hikes in that country. Have you ever read the fable of the goose that laid the golden egg?
Yep.
Well, the United Kingdom is should have read that fable because they tried to kill the goose that laid the golden egg, and they're reaping the unfortunate results of that. I'll tell you about the newest scam popping up on Facebook. Have you seen any ads on Facebook where you could buy a pallet of Amazon return merchandise for $29?
No, I haven't.
Well, it's been popping up on several people's Facebook page, including mine. I'm getting them every single day. We'll tell you why it's a scam. We'll tell you how many shots were fired at a massive block party in Montgomery, Alabama this weekend, and why you probably didn't hear about it on the news. Did you
I
hear
did
about?
not. No, I did not hear about this one.
Okay, then we'll ask, and this is the perspective part. Why didn't you hear about this story on the news? Back in 2021, when President Biden did the Build Back Better, he signed the 1.2 trillion Infrastructure and Jobs Act. Part of that was to spend 42 billion to bring high-speed internet to rural homes. Well, we'll give you an update on how many rural homes have now been the recipients of that high-speed broadband. We'll also talk about global warming and try to put some of the claims about the planet warming into perspective. And all it has to do is as to what you choose as your reference date. It's all about picking. Remember Mark Twain, figures don't lie, but liars
Yep.
figure.
Yep.
Well, we'll talk about is the planet really warming? It all depends on what you choose as your starting date. And our taxpayer relief shot comes to us from Wilson, South Carolina, where a 70-year-old man at home with his 70-year-old wife shoots and kills a man trying to kick down his front door. So don't mess with old people. All right. Uh, all right. Our quote of the week from comedian and actor Ricky Gervais. And I just thought this was a great one because I encounter it all the times. And listen carefully. He said, opinions don't affect facts, but facts should affect opinions.
Yes,
And note the word
absolutely.
should. I deal with so many people who who are become just entrenched in their opinions, and you can give them facts that absolutely contradict their opinion or their belief, but sometimes it doesn't matter. They are so entrenched in their opinions that literally facts don't
Mhm.
matter to them. Have you ever encountered somebody like that?
Absolutely, all the time. And I'll tell you, I think this is the whole point of the show. I listen to the news every night and they will report on factual information, but I was like, but what about this aspect? You failed to report on this aspect of this particular segment.
Right. That's why we call it.
Yelling at the television.
That's why we call it news and opinion. And again, I think it's a great quote. And again, I literally, because I spend some time on liberal websites every day, and people will make these outrageous false claims about rich people don't pay taxes or whatever. By the way, according to the IRS, the top 1% of the people in this country pay nearly 46% of all income taxes paid.
Mhm.
And you can tell people when they say, well, rich people don't pay taxes, and you can say, no, according to Biden's IRS, they're paying the lion's share. And then here's a link to the IRS website. Well, you're lying. That's fake news. I mean, literally, they will reject IRS data documented from irs.gov. They will find a reason to reject that documented fact.
Mhm.
So again, from Ricky Gervais, opinions don't affect facts, but facts should affect opinions. And that's where he ends his quote. And as you
Yeah.
and I are both confirming, but unfortunately, when facts should affect opinions, frequently they don't. All right. So you want to move on to the stupidest thing I've heard all week?
Yeah. What's the stupidest thing you heard this week?
Now you've seen freight trains with 100 cars behind them, like coal
Oh yeah.
trains. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they're being pulled by a diesel. By the way, did you know that diesel locomotives are actually electric trains? Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Because the diesel engine generates power and the wheels are actually driven by electric motors.
Mhm.
So one way to look at a diesel locomotive is that's an electric train. But anyway, so since railroads are involved in interstate commerce, they have to get a waiver. The EPA is in charge of emissions and whatnot. California wants to ban the operation of diesel locomotives in the state of California effective January 1, 2030, which is only 5.5 years from today. But to do that, they have to get approval from the EPA to put that ban into effect. But here's what's so insane about it. So they want the railroad companies to replace all of their diesel locomotives with battery, electric
Oh my
EV.
gosh.
Well, problem number one, there are no commercially available electric locomotives. Second, the ones that the prototypes that they've tried have been for passenger train. And you've seen these passenger trains like Amtrak, they're what,
Yeah.
six, seven cars,
Yeah. Maybe 10.
maybe 10 cars.
Maybe 10.
And certainly when you look at the weight in a passenger car, you got a bunch of seats and a bunch of people, the density is nowhere near that of, say, a coal train or
Yeah.
a cargo. When you look at these uh, intermodal one, by the way, the city of Long Beach is one of the major ports in the United States.
Mhm.
So there's something called intermodal where container freight comes in on a ship, gets
Mhm.
transferred to a train, 100 car train, and that 100 car train then sets out across country, dropping those cars at various truck hubs across the country. They go to Salt Lake City, they'll go to Denver, they'll go to Las Vegas, they'll go to Chicago, and that's how they do that. So California is asking for permission to ban diesel. Well, first of all, God forbid they get it. If I were the operators of the railroad companies, 6 months in June of 2029, I would tell the state of California, well, we don't have any of those. We don't intend to buy any of those. And we want to give you 6 months heads up that effective January 1, 2030, we will no longer be operating uh, uh, any freight transportation.
We first of all, you already mentioned that these don't exist, and the prototypes that are out there, they're prototypes. And we've had this conversation so many times on the show with respect to school buses and tractor trailers, 18-wheelers, and about how that battery operated. This doesn't work for a school bus. It doesn't work for a tractor trailer, 18-wheeler.
Right.
What makes you think that this is going to work for a train?
It's not going to work for train. So yeah, it would actually be quite comical if California got the waiver and put that into law. I can just imagine as the deadline appeared. What do you think the state would do if the railroad company said, "Oh, by the way, all those containers coming into the port of Long Beach, you better find another way to get them out of your state because we're not going to be sending any trains to Long Beach anymore."
And
What?
it's sad that our country gets so much import from China, but all of that import from China goes to Long Branch or to Long
Long
Beach.
Beach, Long Beach, right? Yeah, the Long Beach, Port of Long Beach. Exactly.
That's where
So
it's all going.
that's where it's all going. So anyway, so that's what's brewing. It'll be interesting if the EPA says, I don't know if that's just virtue signaling, but be interested to see how EPA responds to that request for a waiver. And if it's granted, what the railroad companies do and what the state of California will do if they decide
I
not to.
mean, are they looking to go back to steam? I mean,
No, they wanted the electric. So anyway, no fossil fuels, no fossil fuels. So the other thing would have to be to electrify all of those uh, thousands of miles of track, and we know the railroad companies aren't going to do that either. So it's going to
yeah.
be.
And but because where does their electricity come from?
Oh, by the way, they buy it from since they're a net user, they use more than they buy. They buy it from coal-fired power plants in Arizona and Nevada.
Yeah.
That's where California gets a huge chunk of their, and any incremental, since California continues to shut down its own nuclear and coal plants, every year they're buying more out-of-state power than the year before, and that out-of-state power is coal-fired power. So anyway,
I gotta wonder if California is smoking a little bit too much.
I don't know, but you got to shake their head. And by the way, if Biden drops out, Gavin Newsom will. Which, by the way, we should mention that Thursday is the debate. I'm
Looking
really
forward to it.
hoping, yeah, I'm really hoping that Biden doesn't do horribly. I hope he doesn't freeze up, because if he does, that would probably mean he would have to drop out. And then you get someone like Gavin Newsom would step in to replace him. So I'm actually hoping. I don't think Biden's going to do well. I'm just hoping he doesn't do horribly, but horribly bad, and has to be let off the stage, because that
Yeah.
would mean we'd have a different presidential case. Because I think Trump can beat Biden. I don't think Trump can beat Gavin Newsom, but we'll see what happens on Thursday. All right, you want to move on to Philadelphia, the coffee shops and unions in Philadelphia?
Yeah, what's going on in Philly?
Well, there was an independent chain, a family owned. They had three coffee shops, and I think the SCI service employees and got in and they convinced those employees of those three coffee shops, which is about, when you look at 7 days a week and you look at, a 12-hour day, you typically have about 15 or 16 employees to cover all those shifts. Anyway, so 45 people roughly voted in majority vote to unionize. Well, the week after the vote, the owners of the three coffee shops announced that they would be ceasing operations and closing all three stores because they couldn't afford the additional demands the union was placing on them. So once again, they won the battle, lost the war. So don't know if anybody else is going to try to reopen those coffee shops. And by the way, Starbucks, a couple of Starbucks shops that have been unionized, the employees have now gone back and asked for another election. They want to decertify the union. But that's what happens when you win the battle on a thin margin business.
There's a lot. I have a lot of friends in some unions, and I think back in the day when we didn't have labor laws, I think they had a very good place in our country. They're a big part of our country's history.
Mhm.
But now with all of the labor laws, and I just don't know that unions are
Well,
are.
not only that, when you have the free market right now, you've heard the term seller's market.
Mhm.
Well, right now, there are 8 million open, unfilled jobs in this country,
Yeah.
advertised open, unfilled jobs, which is two open jobs for every one job seeker. So you now have a competitive market for labor,
Mhm.
and only those businesses that are able to attract and retain qualified staff will survive. If you're not offering a wage and benefit package that doesn't
Mhm.
allow you to attract and retain employees, you're going to go out of business.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So yes, you've got government organizations like OSHA make sure that you have safe working
Yeah.
conditions, that you get paid for overtime. And
Mhm.
then the free market, by the way, is ensuring that people are getting paid. I think the average annual salary in this country, by the way, this may shock you. You want to guess what the average hourly wage in this country is right now?
Probably $20 an hour, I'm gonna guess.
Try 33.
Wow.
$33 an hour is the average, which means for making it. When you look at, typical guy works in automotive. If a guy works in a auto repair station, he can change brakes. He can,
Mhm.
um, you know, even changing oil filter. He can change your spark plugs. That guy's making $35 an hour minimum,
Yeah.
minimum.
I know people around, especially around here, people are talking about, oh, minimum wage, which the minimum wage in Pennsylvania, I forget the exact dollar amount, but it's, I don't want to say 750, 775. There isn't a job in this town that is out there for that cheap. The minimum wage for all of the grocery store cashiers and the convenience stores, they're paying at least $15.
Right.
And
Let me give you a statistic, by the way. You can look this up, Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which track these things, says right now less than 4% of the people in this country work for minimum wage. And
Mhm,
the vast majority of those who do work in tipped positions like waiters, waitresses, and casino dealers,
mhm,
where if you're a waiter or waitress in a decent restaurant, your tips will easily equal 2 times to 4 times the hourly wage.
mhm,
By the way, in my opinion, the national hourly wage is a dinosaur that needs to go away. When you look at
mhm.
the diversity of cost of living and wages and, how can it be a meaningful thing? I think minimum wages need to be set at the state and even the city level. And of course, we already have 20 or 25 states already have a state minimum wage. And even
Again,
within
I think the state minimum is irrelevant because so our minimum wage is 750 or 775, but you can't find a job in this town
right,
for that much. The minimum wage that employers are offering is 15, which is
right,
literally twice that of the minimum wage. So the minimum wage, therefore, is irrelevant.
right. And I think the whole concept of a federal minimum wage needs to go away. It's a dinosaur.
Mhm,
It's irrelevant. And again, with when you have two open jobs for every one worker, the
mhm,
market's going to find its own level for labor. So, but that's just a wish list of mine that we kill the federal minimum wage and let the
mhm.
free market establish that. All right, you want to move on to the goose that killed the golden egg, that
Yeah.
laid the golden egg? All right. So you know that in the United States, the top individual tax rate is 37%, one of the highest in the world. Do you know
Mhm.
what the United Kingdom raised their top income tax rate to?
Oh, probably close to 50. Oh,
63.5%.
yikes.
So, so you know what's happening? Let me quote you from this. After that happened, this is a quote now. The continuing exodus from the United Kingdom, 16,500 millionaires left the country between 2017 and 2023, and as part of a global mass migration that the rich appear to be accelerating. The Henley Private Wealth Migration Report found that 128,000 millionaires are set to relocate this year, beating last year's record by 8,000. And if you think it's just countries like the United States, in 2021, 6,600 US millionaires and billionaires renounced their US citizenship, left the country, taking their wealth and, more importantly, their tax dollars with them. Remember what I said at the beginning of the show? What percentage of the taxes are paid by the top 1%?
If it was 40, 40,
Six.
46%.
46%. Well, 6,000 of those people, 6,600 of those people who are paying those taxes said goodbye, see you later. They're moving to places like Bermuda, Belize, Bahamas, Cayman Islands, beautiful places that have
Mhm.
either a 0% income tax rate or a 15% income tax rate. So again, there's something called an optimal tax rate where the more you charge, the less you get.
Mhm.
By the way, you've heard of the Laffer curve.
Yes.
So, and he said, look, at a 0% tax rate, you get 0% income taxes. And at a 100% tax rate, you get zero taxes, because at a 100% tax rate, nobody's going to work if they're
Yep.
not going to get to keep any of their money. So it's basically like a bell curve.
Yep.
And there's always struggle to find where is the peak of the bell curve. And right now, the UK has clearly found that 63.5% is on the far right side of the bell curve. Of course, they're driving out the people who pay the taxes. And California experienced that too. We've
Mhm.
talked about the loss of population in California before, right?
Mhm.
And the people who are leaving, and this is from United Van Lines, the people who are hiring United Van Lines to move them out of California are not the lower end of the income spectrum, because those are people that rent a U-Haul van, right?
Yep.
When I moved to New Jersey from Colorado, I think my moving bill was like $16,000.
Mhm.
So the people who are hiring United to move them out of state are the people that are on that upper end, the high end
Yeah.
taxpayers. All right, let's move on to Facebook scams. In the last week or so, I've been inundated with ads that look like these are big picture ads, and they're showing pallets of merchandise in front of Amazon distribution centers, and each pallet has a big yellow $29 sign on the pallet. And if you look closely, it's not from Amazon. It's from companies like they have names like Ambox, amboxsales.com or ampalletsales.com. And what they claim is that these are returned merchandise from Amazon. And if you look closely, you'll see that these pallets, number one, the $29 sign has been photoshopped onto each pallet. And then the picture of the pallets themselves has been photoshopped onto a picture of an Amazon warehouse. So this has nothing to do. And here's how this works. Number one, $29 for a pallet of what they tell you is new and unused merchandise that has been returned to Amazon. They then want $19.95 to ship it, which is $50. They will ship you a box. And they'll have proof of delivery. When you open the box, it'll literally be a box of junk. I mean, absolute junk. And then when you go to your credit card company to contest the charge, they're going to produce a delivery receipt showing that, yeah, you ordered a box of stuff, we sent you a box of stuff. So that's the first time you get hit. They'll keep your $50. And then you
Yeah.
know what else you're doing? You gave,
The renewal, like the continuous renewal fee.
no, you gave me a credit card number, expiration date, and security code. They're going to charge all sorts of fake charges to your credit card, and it'll take you a month to find out about it. So
You
if
know
you
what
see
is popular in lieu of that are these bin stores. Have you seen these bin stores?
no,
And it is places like Amazon returns or Kohl's returns or whatever store returns, and it's these bin stores are liquidating all that merchandise that you have returned,
well, and
and you can
in
buy the
fact,
stuff for
if you
pennies
can
on the
actually
dollar.
pick out the merchandise, but if somebody says, we'll send you a pallet, but that you can't get to pick, they'll just say, we'll send you a pallet of assorted merchandise. That's what this is. And they'll
Mhm.
send you a box full of junk, literally junk.
Mhm.
Because they don't tell you what you're buying. And now if you go to a bin store and you can pick out sneakers and you can pick out a jacket, that's great. You're actually getting material, stuff that you want and can use. But if somebody says we're going to send you a box full of something for $50,
Yeah.
you're being scammed. So if you see an ad for pallets of Amazon merchandise, run, don't walk, and tell your friends and neighbors, stay away from that. And again, I've seen it, by the way, they keep changing the name of the company, but it's the same picture in front of the same Amazon warehouse. So run, don't walk. All right. How much time we got?
Oh, we got about 10 minutes.
Okay. So you didn't hear this story. Saturday night, Montgomery, Alabama, which is predominantly, African American. So I think it's like 80% African American. A block party started around sunset on Saturday night. And by the way, it was 1,000 people, which requires a permit, but they didn't have a permit. But the mayor and the chief of police decided to, well, we know they don't have a permit and it's an illegal party, but oh, what the hell? So the police stayed away. Well, the party was still going strong about 1:30 in the morning when, surprise, surprise, shots began to ring out. And 5 minutes later, when the shooting stopped, more than 600 rounds had been fired and
Oh,
9 people
yikes.
had been wounded. Yeah,
Wow.
600 rounds. You've been to a firing range, right?
Yeah.
Do you think you could fire 600 rounds in 5 minutes?
No, I probably couldn't.
Do you think two people could fire 600 rounds in 5 minutes?
Uh,
Well, the machine, if they had,
Maybe it would be tight, but maybe. I think experienced gun owners, experienced gun users could probably do that.
not if they had to reload their magazines, they couldn't.
True. Yeah.
I mean, if you have to reload unless you went there with 20 preloaded magazines, it's not possible. So I'm going to, just being a guy who shoots a lot, goes to the firing range. Um, I'm guessing if 600 rounds were fired in 5 minutes, you had to have at least a dozen shooters, at least a dozen shooters.
Yeah.
So my question is this: is bringing a gun to a social gathering in a big city now the norm in this country?
I hope not.
I mean, did we talk last week about the Juneteenth celebrations and how many?
Yeah.
I think we had 4 shootings at 4 different Juneteenth celebrations.
Yeah, which is really sad.
So is this now the norm? You get a big gathering, it's a norm to bring for not
I
just
mean,
a
I hope
gunman.
this is not the case.
I'm sorry. Well,
Uh,
but apparently, and we're not talking one gunman. We're talking multiple gunmen. Uh, it apparently is now the norm for these social gatherings. So I have no idea how we got here. I have no idea what to do about it. Any thoughts?
And I don't know, especially, an outdoor, it's not a controlled environment where you're going through metal detectors. I don't
Yeah.
know.
All right. Hey, I know we're running short on time. Real quick. So I want to move to these next two items. In November 21, President Biden signed the 1.2 trillion Infrastructure and Jobs Act, which included 42.5 billion in federal aid to bring high-speed internet to millions of rural homes. As of today, almost 3 years later, you want to guess how many of those homes are now enjoying that promised high-speed broadband internet?
Don't think anybody is, because they did that around here and nobody's got access to it.
Yeah. So if you guessed any number higher than zero, you guessed too high.
Yep.
Now, you want to guess how many will be connected by the end of this year?
Probably the same. Nobody.
Yeah, same answer. If you guess more than zero, you guess too high. You know what? How many will be connected by the end of next year, 2025?
Probably none.
Same answer, zero. So at this time, the best estimate is that the first home won't be connected to that promised high-speed service until sometime in 2026. Meanwhile, you can still go to Home Depot and purchase a dish and a modem that will give you access to the Starlink satellite internet network for $599 at Home Depot. And for another $150, they'll send a technician out and connect you and give you up to speeds of up to 200 megabytes per second. So if you were one of these rural homes, would you rather be waiting till 2026 for your broadband connection, or would you rather have had a Starlink connection 2 years ago?
I'd rather have a Starlink connection 2 years ago, but we were also, I thought that the reason why they were doing this was to bring internet connectivity to, poor regions, and those people wouldn't be able to afford that.
No, but my point is they could have given 3 years ago, they could have given everybody a voucher.
Yeah, they could have given everybody a voucher and it could have been done by now.
And it would have been cheaper. It would have been
Yeah.
cheaper. I think we did a story 6 months ago where it was going to cost $30,000 per home on some Indian reservation.
Yeah. Oh,
It,
yes. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
it would have been faster and cheaper for them to just print up a bunch of vouchers and send them to these rural homes and say,
Yep.
take this voucher to Home Depot and here's another voucher for the installation.
Yep.
And all those people would have high-speed internet today instead of waiting for another 2 years. So again, government inefficiency. All right. So is the planet really warming? Was your degree in some earth science or something?
Yeah. So, looking at the earth over time from the beginning of when the earth was created, yes, the earth we are coming out of an ice age.
Right.
So the
So
earth is currently warming because it has a natural cycle.
exactly. So the answer to the question, is the planet really warming? The answer is it depends on when you want to start the measurement period. So there's a geologist, Professor Ian Plimmer, and he said the question of whether or not the planet is warming is entirely dependent on when you start measuring. If you start measuring in the 1850s, there's been a general minor warming of only 0.7 degrees Celsius, insignificant. However, if you start to measure from what's been known the medieval cooling period, we've actually had a cooling of 4 degrees Celsius. And by the way, 1 degree Celsius is 1.8 degree Fahrenheit. So 4 degrees Celsius is 7 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you go back to the medieval period, which is around the 1300s, we are now 7 degrees cooler on average than we were in the 1300s. So it's all about when you start the measuring time. And again, natural cycles. Anyway, we're probably running out of time, aren't we?
You got about 5 minutes. I mean, again, we're in these massive cycles, and we're talking thousands of years, but
Well,
we are still coming out of an ice age.
in the case of the medieval warming period, it's not even been 1,000 years. We are
Yeah.
7 degrees cooler now than we were 1,000 years ago. So it's not thousands, it's actually from
Tens of thousands.
Well, from 1300 to now is 800 years. So in 800 years, the planet has cooled by 7 degrees. So, so again, the answer to the question whether the planet is warming, again, is entirely dependent on when you want to start the measuring point.
And each ice age is about 100,000 years.
Yes. So Anyway, so that's where we are. I know we're running out of time. People always want me to get to the taxpayer lead show, so let me just tell you what they are real quick. Here's the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, and here's how he goes about it.
Somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
And on that note, here comes our. This is from Wilson, South Carolina. Old man and his wife living alone, and here we go.
As well. And I'm Sean Maroney. Thanks for joining us. A 71-year-old man says he was just trying to protect his wife when he shot and killed a man at his home in Wilton.
Paul Morgan says a man was trying to break into his home and he warned he was going to shoot. New at 6, CBS North Carolina's Amy Cutler talked to Morgan and has more.
This is the Wilson home where it happened. You can see the 2 bullet holes where Paul Morgan fired, and he said he did it to protect himself and his wife.
I figured somebody would come in and try to kill me or something, me and my wife, and I just had to do what I had to do.
71-year-old Paul Morgan talking about that terrifying encounter early this morning when he says a man was trying to break into his Wilson home.
They pulled that door open, that door was locked, and when they got the door open, they started kicking that door there, kicking that wood door there, and kept kicking.
Morgan says when he heard that kicking, his wife called 911 and he grabbed his gun.
And I got my gun and went to the door there, and I got right there to the hall, and I told them, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, and they kept right on kicking.
That's when Morgan says he fired 2 shots and the kicking stopped. He and his wife didn't go outside. Rather, they waited for police. Authorities saying the alleged burglar was rushed to the hospital where he died. Morgan telling me he didn't mean to kill the guy. He just wanted to scare him off. And to those who think he should have waited and not fired, Morgan had this to say.
But I couldn't wait and didn't know if that door would have popped open, they come in and killed me. And I'm waiting for the police to get here.
Wilson police are now investigating. They have not identified that would-be thief, but they're asking anyone with information on the incident to give them a call. In Wilson, I'm Amy Cutler, CBS North Carolina.
Now let's talk real quick. So the castle doctrine doesn't apply because the guy was not inside the house. But here's the other aspect. Did this guy have a reasonable fear for his life or serious bodily injury?
Yes, and his wife.
And his wife, right? Because he didn't know what this guy's intention were. He warned the guy. He didn't know maybe this guy had a gun. And if you wait till the doors has been broken open, it may be too late. So again, it wasn't covered by the castle doctrine because the guy wasn't in the house. But I think if anybody tried to charge him, I think he has an excellent argument that he had reasonable fear of death or serious bodily injury if that guy had managed to break down the door. So I think that's why no charges will be filed in this case. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think it was, again, he was trying to protect himself and his
wife
from perceived threat.
From a perceived threat from a guy that was trying to kick in his locked door. So, all right. Well, anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, thankfully the heat wave has finally broken. We're back to normal June hot temperatures.
We got one more day here in Jersey, then we're going to have beautiful weather Thursday, Friday.
I don't know. I did mow the lawn. I have to say, I mowed the lawn yesterday. I didn't have to mow the grass, but I had to mow the weeds. So now my weeds are now even with my lawn. But when I was out walking the dog this afternoon, the grass was a little crunchy.
Yep. Yeah, we didn't mow this
week. We're heading into a drought.
Yep. We had a 1 week without rain. So same here.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, before we run out of time, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope you found it interesting, important as I did. And hope you continue to listen. If you want to see some materials and story links you heard me talk about today, you'll be able to find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com, spelled JERZEE, jerzeejoe.com, with Jersey being spelled with an RZEE. If you want to email me with a comment, question, or suggested show topic, you can do that by just sending me an email to just jerzeejoe.com. And with that, unless you have anything to add, we'll.
You know what? This episode actually marks the end of season 4 for us.
Does it really?
Which is that means we've done about 100 episodes.
All right, I think we're losing our clock here, so we got to go. All right, talk to you next week. Bye-bye.